Hi folks, thank you for joining me today. Is a headless CMS primarily for developers? Is it not designed for non-technical practitioners? Is your client or your in-house marketing team ready and digitally mature enough to use a headless CMS? These are all loaded questions. Let's find out the answers. In Australia, we have a very strict movie rating and classification system. Allowing your 12-year-old son to watch an MA-rated movie could theoretically put you in trouble. We are always asked to check the classification of what our kids consume. Shouldn't we be doing the same for our clients? Now, if you work for a digital agency, the client could be a customer, or if you're working for an organization, the client could be your in-house marketing team. Shouldn't we be guiding our clients when it comes to navigating the headless hype? I'm Emmanuel Tissera. I've been in software and web development close to 19 years now. For the last 6 years, I've been with Luminary. I work with this bunch of awesome people for clients like Schneider Electric, Save the Children, and UNICEF. I've been working with headless CMSs since 2016 and talking about it every chance I get. For the record, I'm a huge fan of Headless and Umbraco Heartcore. This talk is for me as much as you to exercise some caution when recommending Headless to our clients. In this talk, we will explore the hype around Headless CMSs. We will delve into digital experience maturity and how we can rate our clients. Then we will look at the solutions in the Umbraco ecosystem. Finally, we will tie this into the real world by exploring some case studies. CTOs and marketing leaders are looking to future-proof their technical landscape. Headless CMSs come with a lot of promise and a lot of potential. So everybody wants to use a headless CMS. Is it just a hyped up market, or is there justification in everybody wanting it? Let's take a quick walk down memory lane. The World Wide Web was introduced barely 30 years ago. It consisted of handcrafted HTML pages. Then came monolithic CMSs. In 2000, Umbraco was born. Somewhere around 2010, the headless trend started. In 2019, Umbraco Heartcore HQ's SaaS headless CMS was introduced, and just last year, Unicore was offered as another commercial SaaS product. Umbraco Heartcore is relatively new in terms of headless product, but it is built on the solid foundation of Umbraco CMS. Umbraco HQ describes Heartcore as a SaaS offering. But I beg to differ and would like to classify Umbraco Heartcore as content as a service or CaaS. CTOs and marketing leaders are looking to use content as a service. What makes Heartcore a part of this headless hype? Let's dig in. Why do developers love Umbraco Heartcore? The number one reason in my mind is the dynamic and versatile API available to retrieve content. Umbraco Heartcore has a RESTful API and GraphQL in place. What this means is that as soon as you create a content model and populate it, you can retrieve content from an API without any further coding. You also get to use your favorite platform and tech stack to deliver content to end users. With Heartcore, you're not chained to your Windows machine for development. You can now code even on Linux or a Mac. Your chosen technology could be .NET, JavaScript, PHP, or any other programming language you're familiar with. The code base is simplified because you and your team are using the technology you are comfortable with. The code is clean and simple. With Umbraco Heartcore, you don't have to deal with content creation, just the delivery. As much as developers love Umbraco Heartcore, management also loves it. Unlike a traditional CMS, there are no upgrades or maintenance to the CMS back office. That's something Umbraco HQ will take care of. Operating costs are low since you don't specifically pay for any infrastructure and only pay for what you consume. With Umbraco Heartcore, you start with €49 a month for a mini plan and work your way up from there. If your consumption and needs go up, you can easily scale up to get the performance levels you're looking for. For example, a mini plan allows you to transfer 50 gigs of data. But if your consumption goes up, you can switch to a starter plan which gives you 600 gigs of data transfer. So your capex is kept to a minimum when starting out. Next up, securing the back office is taken care of by Umbraco HQ. They're able to throw more resources at making sure security is never compromised. Critical security patches will be applied much faster than you would be able to do it on your own. Finally, management love the fact that Umbraco Heartcore reduces time to market. This is due to the fact that content could be created and published even before their display mechanisms are developed. As with any other software product out there, headless CMSs have their pros and cons. If an organization is not digitally mature enough to handle these cons, it could burst that balloon of happiness. CTOs and marketing leaders may be setting the direction for an organization. But when it comes to actual use of a headless CMS, it's the operational staff or the digital experience team who work with it on a daily basis. This is where the mismatched expectations crop up. The vendor's expectations are different to what the customer's expectations are. What would a headless vendor such as Umbraco HQ expect? They want customers to use Umbraco Heartcore to write content once and publish it to multiple channels. The vendor expects more developer involvement at the start of replatforming, not less than what a traditional CMS such as Umbraco or a SaaS product such as Umbraco Cloud would need. Customers on the other end expect headless CMSs to work with less developer input. They expect to see fancy drag and drop interfaces, preview sites, and inline editing provided by the headless CMS backoffice. That headless hype we spoke about has been shattered a bit by this time due to those mismatched expectations. Vendors, agencies, and customers are at each other's throats. But as it's headless, that's a moot point. CTOs and marketers are trying to create a digital experience, TX for short, with their organization's customers, partners, and employees. They strive to make every digital interaction a positive experience for end users. Building this positive experience can't be done by a single person. It needs a team of marketers, content editors, developers, and customer-focused experts to work. That DX team needs to work towards a goal, and that this is defined by the DX strategy of that organization. In order to support that DX strategy, the technical architecture needs to be robust. Every digital touchpoint needs to be integrated and architected in a way that allows the customer to have a seamless experience with that organization. If your client has all these DX components in place, we need to measure their digital experience maturity. Forrester provides a great self-assessment survey to measure this maturity. There are 5 questions which relate to headless CMSs, and we will look at them now. I will delve into each of these questions and see how you can rate your client to each one. Each of these questions will be awarded points. If your client strongly agrees to a question, give them 5 points. If they are neutral, give them 3 points. They will get 1 point for any question they strongly disagree to. If the total score is between 20 to 25 points, the client is digitally mature enough to take on headless. If they are between 10 to 15 points, they need to reconsider and you need to have a chat with them. But don't dismiss headless CMSs even if an organization's DX maturity is low. A headless CMS may still be the best option in certain circumstances where using a traditional CMS could be a hindrance. My advice is be honest with your client and educate them on the pros and cons of headless. Do you have a potential client who wants to go headless? Or do you think one of your existing clients would do better on headless? I'll give you 10 seconds to grab a piece of paper and start rating your client with me. Let's get started. Does your client's DX team proactively recruit and develop talent? Does your client nurture talent by doing community outreach or by running university programs? Do they organize hackathons or strive for continuous education of their team members? Are there mentoring programs and documented career paths in place? Or does your client team up with a specialized agency such as yours to complement and expand their DX team? If that's the case, does your agency proactively recruit and develop talent? I'll give you a few seconds to rate your client according to this 5-point scale. If your client nurtures DX talent, give them 5 points. If they are neutral, give them 3 points. Or if they are bad at nurturing talent, give them a single point for question 1. Does your client's DX strategy support a broad set of channels, touch points, and experiences? Does your client need to push content into channels such as web and mobile apps? Does the same content need to be distributed via EDMs and social networks? Does your client see chatbots, no UI implementations such as Google Home or Amazon Alexa, or smart displays in their future? Let's rate your client for question 2. Does their DX strategy support Omnichannel? Give them 5 points, 3 points, or a single point. Is your client looking at reusing content across channels and within channels? Do they have the resources to optimize content in a timely manner? Does their DX strategy focus on content reuse and optimization? Are all content repositories connected? In other words, is content not in different silos? Can atomic content elements be used to compose rich output? Does your client rely on content analytics to optimize content? Is your client reusing and optimizing their content or hoping to do so in the future? If they are, give them 5 points or rate them accordingly. Does your client's DX team create dynamic experiences and journeys for end users? Are these experiences based on customer, historical, and situational data? When it comes to creating dynamic experiences and journeys, a DXP would seem to be the obvious choice. But if you think about it, the content from a headless CMS has the ability to permeate across channels and devices, creating a dynamic but unified experience for the end user. Does your client's DX team create dynamic experiences? Do you strongly agree? Are you neutral? Or do you strongly disagree? Rate them according to that. Does your client's DX architecture focus on reusable core services? Does it involve microservices and accessible APIs? Is your client's DX architecture up to scratch? If it's yes, give them 5 points. If they're neutral, give them 3 points. Or the DX architecture is bad, give them a single point for question 5. Those are the 5 questions you need to put in front of your client in order to rate their maturity level. What is your total score from our little exercise? Is your client ready to take on headless? Or are they on the fence? Or do you need to reconsider? But remember, DX maturity itself might not be enough in recommending headless or hardcore. For example, a requirement for data sovereignty might need to be considered. These requirements could result in reconsidering a headless CMS as a chosen option. So, if they are to reconsider using headless, what are the options? We can find solutions within the Umbraco ecosystem which will be a right fit for these organizations. Let's do a quick run through of them. Umbraco CMS was born in 2000 and released as open source in 2004. There are no licensing costs and you can modify it in any way you like. You get to decide where you want to host your website. It could be Azure, AWS, or God forbid, a PC under your desk. You are responsible for uptime and version updates of the platform. Umbraco Cloud is built on top of Umbraco CMS and is offered as a SaaS product. It is run by HQ and they are responsible for uptime and version updates. You are responsible for the custom code and functionality for your client. Umbraco Uno is the latest SaaS product introduced by Umbraco HQ. It is a low-code option and is comparable to Squarespace and Wix. Uno comes with pre-built themes and widgets and even a sample website to get a non-developer running with very little training. Also within this ecosystem, there are 1,200 known Umbraco packages available. It will either do the job you want, or you may find the source code you can modify. Best of all, there are friendly developers out there to help you. The Umbraco ecosystem is pretty broad in allowing you to find the right fit solution for your client. But how do these different options stack up in the real world? We will have a look at a few case studies based on clients I have worked with. In late 2018, our agency was approached by a world-leading pizza franchisor to help with their Umbraco CMS implementation. Unfortunately, the initial implementation was done by a noob and was not up to scratch. But the interesting twist here was that the content and images from Umbraco CMS was consumed as an API. They needed the content to be used in their bespoke e-commerce platform. They also needed to use the same content and images on their digital store signage run by another bespoke platform. They scored a perfect 5 on nurturing their DX team, who were mostly in-house. They brought in the experts when needed to supplement that team. They had different channels: web, mobile, apps, EDMs, and store signage were few in operation. They had their sights on self-serve POS terminals in the future. That scored them another 5. They had a go at reusing and optimizing their content with a homegrown Headless CMS. Another 5 points there. They wanted their customer to have an awesome experience from home to heart and again on their return visit. They invested heavily in building these dynamic experiences and journeys. This question also scored full points. With the DX architecture, it was a neutral rating as there were some legacy systems which needed to be accommodated. This scored them a 3. This pizza franchisor scored 23 points in total on DX maturity. Go headless? Hell yeah. They were an ideal candidate to go headless. Unfortunately, as Umbraco Heartcore was still in beta when the headless selection was made, this client went with another headless vendor. If the decision was just another 14 months out, they would have been the poster child for Umbraco Heartcore. We were invited by a client who manages retirement funds, also called Super here in Australia, to re-platform their website on a Headless CMS. This was basically a very UI-rich brochure website. Dynamic functionality was limited to a few forms, and dynamic data was related to fund performance, which was entered manually by content authors with no integration to any data feeds. When it comes to proactive recruitment and nurturing of DX talent, this client was pretty neutral. They had no in-house devs and just a 2-person marketing and editorial team. With Omnichannel, there was no desire to move into other channels. They just wanted a website which was mobile friendly. This scored them a single point. There were some plans for content reuse, but none for optimizing content. This scored them 3 points. The experiences were based on the information architecture from when they replatformed. As no experiences or journeys were dynamic, this got a score of 1. With the architecture, it was just geared towards a website. There was no plans for microservices or open reusable APIs. This scored another point. In total, this super client scored 9 points on the DX maturity score. Should they go headless? According to the DX maturity model, definitely not. But this client did choose a headless CMS, and I experienced some of those mismatched expectations we spoke about earlier. On the positive side, the client loved the ability to create content even before development began. The numerous awards they won on design and implementation did not go unnoticed either. This is where the lines become blurry and you need some experience to guide you. If they were looking for the right fit on the Umbraco ecosystem, Umbraco Cloud would have been perfect for this client. Our other client is a non-for-profit organization helping children. Their web presence is heavily driven to raise donations. They have got some complex integrations with payment gateways and CRMs. But their short to medium term plan is to just focus on a mobile friendly web channel. A not too uncommon requirement is that content and customer data should stay on Australian soil due to compliance regulations. On DX maturity, they scored a 5 with their internal DX talent and partnership with agencies such as Luminary to nurture and recruit new talent. The medium-term plan is a single web channel which scores them 1 point on the scale. They're keen on analyzing their content, reuse and optimization, which scores them 5 points for this question. They want to create data-driven dynamic experience for their donors, which scores them another 5 points. The DX architecture, unfortunately, is very siloed. They're not keen on a microservices approach, which gives them 1 point for the final question. This gives them a total score of 17. If we go back to our maturity check, this client is a maybe. At this moment, I would not recommend using a headless CMS for this client. Cons of using a headless CMS outweigh the pros for this NFP. Since data sovereignty is a critical requirement, and as Heartcore does not have infrastructure in Australia, I would recommend that this client goes with a self-hosted Umbraco instance. We have looked at a few case studies which I have encountered. But how do you deal with your client? Ask them to do a self-assessment on their DX maturity before they embark on their headless journey. Remember, headless is good only if the client is digitally mature enough to understand what it entails. Headless may be rated edge, but with the guidance and direction of a good partner, it would allow for a smoother ride for those organizations that are mature in their digital experience. It would go amiss if I don't mention the fact that I was inspired to do this talk by reading a Forrester blog post by the same name. It aligns so well with our thinking and what our clients have experienced that I had to turn it into a talk. If you did the client rating exercise with me and have any questions, reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is The Amazing Nut. Thank you for listening to my talk. I hope you got something out of it.